Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Soul Land 2 Peerless Tang Men based on novel. So let's start. Huo Yuhao silently left the slaughtering grounds after cultivating until the morning of the second day. The three-headed Scarlet Devil Mastiff was already waiting for him. The Scarlet King escorted him as he left the Great Star Do Forest and rushed towards Shrek Academy. As his cultivation increased, he was now able to fly using his soul power. However, using soul tools helped him to better conserve his soul power. After 15 minutes, he reached Shrek City. From the sky, it was clear that the city was under busy reconstruction. The original Shrek City had become a fortification, and the new city now expanded out from it. Far from the city, the Spirit Pagoda was already nearly complete. It was a huge tower. As the headquarters of the Spirit Pagoda, Shrek Academy had spent a lot of effort to construct the tower. The tower was in a hexagonal shape, and covered more than 1,000 square meters. According to the plan, the tower would be 13 stories and 200 meters high. It would be big enough to hold more than 10,000 people. This was all for the future development of the Spirit Pagoda. Currently, there weren't even 100 staff members at the Spirit Pagoda, and this number was unlikely to change in the short term. Not far from the Spirit Pagoda was the new designated region of Shrek City. Right now, the outlines of the new city walls were already being constructed along the perimeter. As the scale was too large, the construction of the city walls wouldn't be complete anytime soon, only an area was being sketched out right now. However, even so, it was possible to tell how grand the city would be. Hopefully Shrek City will become stronger and stronger in the future. Huo Yuhao revealed a smile on his face. At least my efforts have not been wasted over the past 3 months. If not for the fact that he had come to an agreement with the Great Star Do Forest, how would Shrek City dare to carry out such a large expansion? During the last Beast Tide, the Tang Sect's soul tools drew the most attention, especially those 2,000 stationary soul cannon shells. Their value couldn't be measured with money. After the Beast Tide ended, the Tang Sect was immediately promoted to a strategic partner of Shrek Academy after a decision was made during a conference of the Sea Gods Pavilion. In addition, both the sect and the academy worked closely with each other. It was no longer like it was in the past, where the sect was sort of a subsidiary of the academy. The Tang Sect's position was recognized by the entire academy for the first time. To thank the Tang Sect for their contribution during the Beast Tide, the Sea Gods Pavilion made an unprecedented decision. They offered the sect a position in the Sea Gods Pavilion. This position naturally wasn't offered to Huo Yuhao, since he was already a member of the Sea Gods Pavilion. Rather, it was given to the leader of the sect, Bei Bei. As of now, the Tang Sect had 2 members in the Sea Gods Pavilion. This wasn't just beneficial in terms of reputation. Shrek Academy had already informed the Tang Sect that the sect could pick a base of their own after Shrek City was rebuilt. This would allow the Tang Sect to expand their influence in Shrek City. By the time the Spirit Pagoda was fully constructed, the scale of Shrek City and the effect of the pagoda on its prosperity was going to be very great. In such a prosperous city, Shrek Academy was very generous in allowing the Tang Sect to choose a base of their own in the city. Furthermore, the academy had already fully paid off the debt that they owed the Tang Sect. While they hadn't paid for the 2,000 stationary soul cannon shells, they gave the Tang Sect a form. After Xian Ziwen received this form, he smiled very widely. There was an inventory list on this form, which included all sorts of rare metals. It comprised roughly 50% of all the rare metals that the 3 empires were willing to supply to the academy. The benefits of spirits for soul masters had been fully revealed after many experiments. Although Shrek Academy was very generous, they weren't overly generous. Shrek City's development required a large amount of money and resources. As a result, the Sea Gods Pavilion had already raised a few terms and conditions when they negotiated with the envoys of the 3 empires. Huo Yuhao had yet to impart the contract of equals. These terms and conditions were naturally regarded as stepping stones for spiritual-type soul masters from the various empires to join the Spirit Pagoda. Shrek Academy had indeed incurred huge losses resisting the Beast Tide. Furthermore, the 3 empires were also not affected at all, because Shrek Academy had resisted the Beast Tide for them. From the tragic state of the battlefield, it was obvious that Shrek Academy had utilized a lot of resources to fight. It was only right for the 3 empires to offer them some aid. In this way, both parties were happy. As the Tang Sect had made very special contributions, they were offered half of the rare metals. Teacher Xian was finally pleased, given that he was extremely heartbroken after losing more than 2,000 stationary cannon shells. Of course, the Academy did make a new request of the sect, which was that they had to prioritize the supply of soul tools to equip Shrek City and the Shrek City Defense Army. Tapping into this opportunity, the Shrek City Defense Army started to expand for the first time in its history. It originally consisted of 10,000 people, but it was about to be expanded to 50,000. Among these 50,000 people, 35,000 ordinary soldiers would be recruited, and the remaining slots were to be filled up by recruiting soul masters and soul engineers. The City Defense Army had suffered huge losses during this battle, and many were wounded. More than 2,500 people lost their lives. Fortunately, the ratio of soul masters and soul engineers who had lost their lives was relatively low. This time, the City Defense Army recruited people from all over the continent. The news was being disseminated, and interested applicants would be screened in batches and recruited within the next 6 months. After the Shrek City Defense Army managed to fight off the beast tide, its reputation was greatly boosted. The minimum requirements needed to join the army were naturally raised. In addition, Shrek City treated its army very well. Many people started to arrive from different places to apply for a position in the City Defense Army. Spirits had also become very popular among the three empires in the Doluo continent. Shrek City and Shrek Academy's reputation improved greatly from all this talk about spirits. The greatest pull factor for people wanting to join the City Defense Army was that they would be given priority to use the Spirit Pagoda. Just this benefit alone was able to draw many soul masters to apply to join the City Defense Army. Shrek Academy managed to greatly maximize their benefits because of this spirits issue. The three empires didn't know what to say about this. Not long ago, the Spirit Pagoda had announced that it could only cater to 200 soul masters every month, as it had just been established. This number would increase in the future, but this was the best they could do now. On the one hand, it was because of the lack of soul beasts being supplied by the Great Star Doe Forest. On the other, the spirit transmission masters had only just learned about contracts, and they weren't very fluid with the process yet. They needed time to accumulate experience. Furthermore, the pagoda was still under construction. As a result, the Spirit Pagoda decided that there could only be this number of spirit transmissions every month at Huo Yuhao's request. At the very least, this number wouldn't increase until after the pagoda was fully constructed. At the same time, the Spirit Pagoda also disseminated another piece of information to reassure the Great Star Doe Forest. Huo Yuhao was the one who directly disseminated this information. It was very simple. It publicly announced Huo Yuhao's earlier guess, and informed all soul masters that spirits could give them more than one soul ring. As a result, one could obtain more soul rings if they suppressed their soul power. The point of this information was to make soul masters less anxious about obtaining soul rings, and to accumulate their abilities instead. In this way, they would be less inclined to hurt soul beasts. After these two pieces of information were disseminated, the existence of the Spirit Pagoda was quickly made known to the three empires of the Doluo continent. There was a sudden rush of soul masters into Shrek City as a result of this news. Shrek Academy had yet to begin its recruitment of new students, but many sects had already sent their disciples over to participate in Shrek Academy's tests. Those who were over the age limit applied to the Shrek City Defense Army. Their arrival caused Shrek City to become even more prosperous. Although it would take a long time to rebuild and develop the city, its bright future was evident from the people who had rushed over. Huo Yuhao made some calculations, and came to a conclusion. It would take at most 3 years for Shrek City to rebuild. Even though only a portion of the soul masters that applied to join the City Defense Army would be retained, the entire city was bound to experience great changes if the Tang Sect and Shrek Academy's soul engineering department were given 3 years. When the time came, Di Qian wouldn't be able to threaten Shrek Academy anymore, even if he unleashed another beast tide. As he was about to enter Shrek City's airspace, Huo Yuhao descended from the sky. Although Shrek City didn't have clear aerial restrictions like the three empires, no soul master or soul engineer would fly above Shrek City unless there was some kind of special situation, out of respect for Shrek. Huo Yuhao entered Shrek Academy from the East Gate. Recently, he had become very reputable. When he entered the academy, he was already recognized by the students. Before his juniors could come up to him, Huo Yuhao quickened his footsteps and hurried off. As he waved his hands to acknowledge them, he quickly rushed towards Sea God's Lake. He moved forward above the water's surface and reached the inner courtyard. As a member of the Sea God's Pavilion, he could enter the pavilion freely, and this was what he did. He stopped in his tracks when he arrived in front of the sea god's pavilion. When he saw the golden tree, which was glowing dimly, he kneeled down once again and kowtowed 3 times before walking into the sea god's pavilion. Yuhao. Di Qian was willing to let you out. Elder Xian was surprised. Very soon, a few elders in the sea god's pavilion rushed down to the main hall. Greetings, elders. Huo Yuhao hailed them respectfully. Elder Xian chortled and said, "You don't have to stand on ceremony with us. Moreover, you are also a member of the sea god's pavilion. How's it going on Di Qian's side? Why was he willing to let you out? Didn't you say that you control the destiny of the entire Great Star Do Forest? We were still discussing how we should go about saving you." Huo Yuhao smiled and said, "The beast god can imprison me, but he cannot stop me from taking my own life. He can't let me die, so naturally, he has no choice but to let me leave." He didn't talk about how Di Qian gave him the Black Dragon's reverse scale. The conflict between Shrek and the Great Star Do Forest was just starting to soften and settle down, and he didn't want any new problems that could complicate things after he departed. "I knew you always had an idea. Everything's fine, as long as you're back. You're already a soul sage. You should remain at the Sea God's Pavilion and rest up. You've almost finished handling matters with the Spirit Pagoda, and I won't let them disturb you if there are no special circumstances. Elder Xian, can I speak to you in private?" "Sorry, elders." Huo Yuhao bowed respectfully at the other elders once more. The elders smiled amicably before they nodded at him and left the 2 of them alone. Elder Xian's expression changed slightly as he sat down at the long table that the Sea God's Pavilion used for meetings and conferences. He pointed at a chair nearby and gestured for Huo Yuhao to sit down as well. "Elder Xian," Huo Yuhao called out softly after he sat down. Elder Xian smiled faintly and said, "If you intend to apologize to me, there's no need for that. The beast wave can't be entirely blamed on you. You're a smart kid, so stop wasting time on an insignificant issue. The auspicious beast's death was just a fuse, and even if this fuse wasn't there, the Great Star Do Forest would probably have made a move within a few years anyway. Therefore, you don't have to blame yourself. Furthermore, your experiments with spirits have given the Academy and Shrek City unprecedented opportunities for development. I trust that it won't take long for Shrek City to become one of the most famous cities on the continent. Your contributions have been substantial. When that happens, we will be much more influential in the continent, and we will be able to do so much more. This time, our main priority will be to expand the Academy and the Tang Sect, besides adding numbers to the city defense army. We will inject large amounts of manpower, resources, and money into the development of these projects. This will be a great positive force for the Tang Sect's future development. Thank you." Huo Yuhao lowered his head and continued, "But no matter what, if not for what happened between Showa and me, the beast wave wouldn't have come so early. If it had come after a few more years, and after our soul tools developed further, we wouldn't have suffered such heavy losses. I am responsible for this. Furthermore, you should know that I summoned an undead army to attack the beast wave in order to save and reinforce Shrek City." When he said these words, a layer of gentle spiritual undulations emanated from Huo Yuhao's body and enveloped them both, blocking any sound from traveling out of it. Elder Xian's expression changed slightly. He hadn't expected Huo Yuhao to take the initiative in discussing this issue. "Yuhao, I only hope that you understand one thing: no matter what, the Academy has unconditional trust in you. Don't hold any burdens in your heart. Those circumstances were special, and you only did that in order to rescue the Academy, and you did that to target soul beasts." Huo Yuhao forced a laugh and said, "But that cannot change the fact that I possess an evil soul master's abilities. However, Elder Xian, I can promise you that these abilities that I possess are different from those of an evil soul master. I will never be affected by these abilities." Elder Xian stared deeply at Huo Yuhao. He was full of admiration inside. This child is just different. Huo Yuhao continued, "These abilities of mine don't belong in the boundaries of our world. Therefore, they are not considered abilities of an evil soul master. Instead, these abilities come from another plane. These abilities, along with the contract of equals, were passed down to me by that teacher of mine whose divine sense remnants I unintentionally fused with." Huo Yuhao no longer hid anything as he detailed everything that had to do with the Calamity Necromancer, Electrolux. His explanation was much different from what he told the soul beasts. He detailed everything from when he first fused with Electrolux, to the end after Electrolux had given him multiple things. Huo Yuhao's explanation was very thorough. Elder Xian listened to his narration very intently, and surprised looks flashed across his face from time to time. Because of my fusion with the Snow Empress spirit, my teacher used the last of his power and left this world forever. He left behind that spectral demiplane and his necromancy, but I will never use these powers unless I have no other choice. Furthermore, my teacher's necromancy utilizes the element of light. Therefore, it doesn't contain any other evil powers in itself. Elder Xian said, since that's the case, then you don't have to think about this anymore. I will keep your secret, and I will not leave any record about this in the Sea God's Pavilion. Just as you've said, all you have to do is avoid using these powers in the future as much as possible. Huo Yuhao exhaled deeply and smiled as he said, I feel so much better after telling all the secrets hidden in my heart. Elder Xian patted him on the shoulder and said, I know what you're worried about, my child. The truth is, doubt has surfaced in my heart before, but my doubts disappeared since I returned to the Sea God's Pavilion. Do you know why? Why? Huo Yuhao asked curiously. Elder Xian answered, because you have been chosen by Elder Mu. Huo Yuhao's eyes turned red when Elder Xian mentioned Elder Mu. He pursed his lips, and he tried his best not to let any tears fall from his eyes. Elder Xian smiled and said, you're a good child, and you've done enough for Shrek already. Do you know that Xiaozhe came to me half a month ago, and told me that he wanted to give up his opportunity to take over as the master of the Sea God's Pavilion, and he wanted to let you take over directly instead of letting you take over in the subsequent generation. What? Huo Yuhao was astonished, and he hurriedly waved his hands in the air and said, that's not going to work. I'm still so young, how can I become master of the Sea God's Pavilion? Elder Xian smiled and said, don't be hasty. Xiaozhe's suggestion is very reasonable. I worked together with Elder Mu and sealed Di Qian away, and even though he managed to break out in the end, I've gained a deeper understanding of a titled Doluor's strength after the experience. I will enter closed-door cultivation once these worldly and mundane affairs have been settled. Huo Yuhao's eyes lit up. Elder Xian, you have a chance to try and break through into that level. Elder Xian chuckled and said, yes. I can't let Elder Mu's painstaking efforts go to waste. That's fantastic. Huo Yuhao exclaimed excitedly. Huo Yuhao was naturally referring to the level of an ultimate Doluor. Elder Xian was a rank 98 transcendent Doluor, one step away from reaching humanity's limit. Even though ultimate Doluor had differences in strength, Shrek Academy would once again possess a powerful individual who was at the pinnacle of the continent. This was great news for the Academy and for Shrek City. Elder Xian smiled and said, if I'm successful, and according to an ultimate Doluor's circumstances, I predict that I can live for another 100 years or more. I will not remain as the master of the Sea God's Pavilion for the rest of my life, but I should have no problem staying in this position for another several decades. When that happens, you'll be all grown up. With your current prospects, you can definitely become a titled Doluor within 10 years, and you should have no problem becoming a transcendent Doluor within 20 years. I will help you hold on for a little while more. As for Xiaozhe, he's had some revelations and understandings because of the development of spirits. He's passed the martial soul department's reins over to Maya and entered closed-door cultivation. He's given up his position as successor to the master of the Sea God's Pavilion, and that's equivalent to him letting go of the greatest burden in his heart. This is great news for him. Xiaozhe is extremely talented, and I hope that he can achieve something after his closed-door cultivation. But, Elder Xian, how can I become master of the Sea God's Pavilion? Huo Yuhao said with some concern. Elder Xian waved him away and said, why are you worrying about this now? I'm not asking you to take up this responsibility right away. You should work hard at improving yourself, and we can talk about who gets to succeed me as master of the Sea God's Pavilion in the future. Did you look for me to open your heart to me? Huo Yuhao said, I'm here to say goodbye. A thread of grief flickered in his eyes when he said the last word of his sentence. Goodbye? You're leaving? Elder Xian was taken aback. Huo Yuhao had become a soul sage, and his spiritual power had improved exponentially, so he did have the ability to protect himself. However, he was far too important to Shrek Academy's future. Elder Xian didn't want to let Huo Yuhao out of his sight if he could help it. Huo Yuhao nodded and continued, there are some things I need to do. I might leave for a relatively long time this time around, so I'm coming here especially to bid farewell to you. Elder Xian lowered his voice and said, if this is because you've summoned the undead army, then that is very unnecessary. I've said before that this matter ends here, and nobody will talk about this publicly. We will all keep your secret. Huo Yuhao shook his head and said, no, I'm not doing this because of that. There are some things that I must do. Furthermore, I want to visit Donga and see if she's awake. Huo Yuhao's emotions changed a little when he mentioned Donga. After Wang Chua sacrificed herself for him back then, the first thing he wanted to do as quickly as possible was visit Donga. Donga had been in a coma for so long, and he didn't know what circumstances she was in. One could say that the fact that Wang Donga was still alive, even though she was in deep slumber, was Huo Yuhao's emotional support. There was nothing more important than Donga to him. Elder Xian couldn't help but nod when Huo Yuhao talked about Donga. Yes. I can't just forbid him from visiting Donga. A smile appeared on his face. I'm really getting old, and I can't bear for you to leave. Furthermore, some things are bound to happen every time you leave, and I'm really afraid of hearing any more bad news that concern you. Huo Yuhao scratched his head sheepishly and said, don't worry, that won't happen this time. I will be very careful about everything. After I visit Donga, I will bring her back if she's awake, but if she's still sleeping, I want to. Huo Yuhao whispered a few words, and Elder Xian was stunned for a moment. His smile widened a little. If you are trying to play dumb, take good care to ensure that you don't become the dumb one. Honestly speaking, the academy has nothing else to teach you anymore. Since you want to leave, just leave. I only have one request, please send news of your safety once every 3 months, regardless of what method you use. Huo Yuhao chortled. Definitely. I won't be impatient when I deal with things in the future. I'll be steadier, and won't make you worry. Elder Xian said, remember, no matter what trouble you face, the academy will always back you up. Always stay true to yourself. Okay. Elder Xian leaned back into his chair as he retrieved a huge wine gourd. As he opened it, a strong fragrance of wine filled the air. Huo Yuhao was stunned. Ever since Elder Xian became the master of the Sea God's Pavilion, Huo Yuhao had not seen him drink like this. He couldn't help but recall the days when Elder Xian would hold a wine gourd in one hand and a chicken drumstick in the other hand. He had been under huge pressure over the past few years in the Sea God's Pavilion. After downing a few mouthfuls of wine, Elder Xian looked more vibrant. It feels great. I haven't drunk like this in a long time. Over these few years, the situation in the continent has been very uncertain. The Sun Moon Empire has grown to be very strong, and Shu Qianran dared to ignore all considerations, going as far as to lay his hands on the competitors of the Youth Soul Master Tournament. This shows how confident he is in his own abilities. Originally, I didn't think too much about it. No matter how strong the Sun Moon Empire was, I thought that it was only slightly stronger than the Star Luo Empire. Even so, the Sun Moon Empire shouldn't be too strong. If the 3 empires in the Doluo continent teamed up, along with the presence of Heaven's wrath to defend us, what could they do? However, I only realized I was wrong after this war. The presence of soul tools is indeed an important factor affecting how wars are fought. As the beast wave raged and the soul beast army charged towards Shrek City, we managed to survive for 2 days with only 10,000 people, 3,000 soul masters and soul tools. We weren't even fully equipped with soul tools then. In such a large-scale war, one's individual abilities are unlikely to affect the outcome unless they are as powerful as Di Tian. How were we able to survive? We survived because of soul tools. In total, we had less than 50 Zhuge divine crossbow cannons. With the Tang Sect's all-terrain self-driving forts and all types of soul tools from the academy, we formed a crossfire that managed to resist the onslaught of the soul beast army. Those stationary soul cannon shells that the Tang Sect provided even caused greater losses to the soul beasts. If they hadn't been battered so heavily, I believe the Great Star Do Forest wouldn't have compromised, even with our spirits. Their goal was very simple: launch an all-out attack to weaken our abilities. The more soul masters they killed, the safer the soul beasts would be for a period of time. I originally looked down on soul tools, as I felt that the strength of a soul tool, even if it was class 9, might not be as strong as an all-out attack from a titled Doluo. However, I discovered that I was wrong. If 100 soul masters attack at the same time, it's very difficult for their power to add up together. However, the attacks of 100 soul tools can be extremely destructive if they are coordinated well. Furthermore, the future of soul tools is that they'll be controlled by ordinary people, according to the Tang Sect's research. If this really comes true, humans will still rule the Doluo continent, even if soul masters cease to exist. Huo Yuhao understood what Elder Xian meant through his tone. He was stunned as he asked, Elder Xian, are you adopting a pessimistic attitude towards the war between the three empires and the Sun Moon Empire? Elder Xian laughed slightly. I'm not pessimistic. It's just difficult to judge. However, it'll depend on the younger people from the three empires to defeat the Sun Moon Empire. Go on, your experiences in the outside world will be very beneficial to your growth. Don't worry about the Tang Sect. The Academy will do its best to support the sect. The growth of the Tang Sect might actually be what we need to resist the Sun Moon Empire in the future. That's great. Elder Xian, I'll leave first. I hope that you can achieve success. Huo Yuhao stood up and bowed respectfully to Elder Xian. He only left the Sea God's Pavilion after Elder Xian gave him the signal to. He didn't rush to leave. He turned around before kneeling towards the golden tree again. After kowtowing 3 times, he drifted away. A teacher for a day, a father for a life. No matter the time, his respect for Elder Mu would never change. School was in session now, and the academy was much quieter. Huo Yuhao quickly left the academy and rushed over to the Tang Sect. The thing he wanted to do the most now was to see Wang Donga. If the Clear Sky Sect allowed it, he would remain there to take care of Wang Donga. As a result, he had to settle many things before that. When Huo Yuhao returned to the Tang Sect, the sect was extremely crowded. There were many more disciples in the sect right now. Huo Yuhao felt that many of them were very familiar, they were probably from the academy. Furthermore, there weren't just students from the Soul Tool department, there were also students from the Martial Soul department. Of course, there were some unfamiliar faces, too. The outer wall of the sect had already been torn down. It seemed like their territory had been expanded once again. Huo Yuhao was extremely notable in Shrek City right now. To avoid unnecessary trouble, he used his imitation, concealed himself in the air, and entered the inner hall of the Tang Sect. Alright, let's follow the original plan for this side. Oh yes, proceed according to the blueprint for this side too. Use the best materials and don't cut any corners. Otherwise, Teacher Xian will take care of all of you. Alright, that's all. Get busy. As he entered, Huo Yuhao heard He Kaitu's voice. He Kaitu had retained his original appearance and seemed to be very busy. There were a few people dressed in construction gear beside him. As he smiled, Huo Yuhao stopped using his imitation. He Kaitu subconsciously turned in his direction. When he saw Huo Yuhao, he couldn't help but rub his eyes, wanting to ensure that he wasn't seeing things. It was only after he confirmed that it was really Huo Yuhao that he shouted in delight, "Little Junior, you're finally back." As he spoke, he charged forward and hugged Huo Yuhao. Everyone from the Tang Sect was anxious after Huo Yuhao was taken away by Di Qian. However, even Elder Xian was helpless, given Di Qian's cultivation. The Tang Sect could only choose to wait. Fortunately, they knew that Huo Yuhao wasn't in any immediate danger due to the presence of spirits. Right now, He Kaitu was delighted because Huo Yuhao had returned. "Little Junior, are you fine?" He Kaitu looked very concerned. Huo Yuhao chortled, "Second Senior, do I look like I'm not fine? Didn't you say that the Tang Sect was given a larger plot of land in the outer city? Why are you still renovating this place?" He Kaitu chuckled and replied, "We planned this after discussing it with the academy. Yes, we were given a larger plot of land in the outer city. However, it's much safer here, since it's close to the academy. We decided to renovate this place and turn it into a Soul Tool Research Institute. After this, we'll move the other things, such as our working area and Soul Tool manufacturing factory, to the outer city. We'll leave everything important in the inner city. In the future, Teacher Xian will hold the fort inside the city and conduct holistic research. This time, the academy has become much more invested in the sect. They've shared all their resources in the Soul Tool department with us, especially in the area of Soul Tool research. They've given unconditional support to Teacher Xian. Whatever Teacher Xian needs, the academy will try its best to gather." Huo Yuhao laughed, "That's great, then. I'm relieved. Second Senior, where's Eldest Senior?" He Kaitu answered, "He's around. He has been very worried about you these few days. He keeps going to the academy to try to find a way to save you. Now that you're back, I'm sure he'll be delighted. Let's go and find him." Right now, only He Kaitu and Bei Bei were in the Tang Sect among Shrek's 7 monsters. Shu Sansha, Jiang Nan Nan and Xiao Xiao were all in the outer city, overseeing the construction of the Tang Sect's new building. Huo Yuhao found Bei Bei quickly. When he saw Huo Yuhao, Bei Bei was naturally extremely delighted. Huo Yuhao recounted everything he had experienced in the Great Star Do Forest to Bei Bei. He only concealed the future influence of Di Qian's Black Dragon reverse scale on him. After all, it was unimportant to the Tang Sect, and it was only a problem that would slowly arise once he became a titled Doluo. He didn't want to make Bei Bei worry about him. Huo Yuhao smiled as he said, "Eldest senior, settle things here at the sect before following me." Bei Bei immediately understood what he meant and seemed slightly agitated. He nodded quickly. Huo Yuhao said, "Have we had no news about Sister Xiaodao over the past few days?" Bei Bei shook his head and said, "No, she hasn't appeared at all. It's the same situation with the academy. If she's fine, she'll still be in the Sun Moon Empire. It's just that the evil energy that you helped to dispel from her body." Huo Yuhao shook his head and said, "I don't know if she can hold on either. It'll depend on her willpower. I believe she'll be fine. It's just that I don't know why she hasn't returned." Ma Xiaodao was still the Holy Lady of the Holy Ghost Church, and a soul Doluo with an ultimate martial soul. As long as she didn't expose her identity, no one could easily harm her inside the Sun Moon Empire. This video will end here.